Hi guys, welcome to Hoops Junction. Paul George recently came out and said that he was committed to playing in Indiana for the 2017-2018 season. It's about 2 days ago. He comes out and says all of this in the wake of everybody, including Chris Broussard, to the guys on the herd, to ESPN, saying that Cleveland needs to go out and get Paul George. You need to trade Kevin Love for Paul George, or they need to find a way to get him to come over there, make something happen to get him over there. Well, Paul George a couple days ago came out and said he's committed to playing in Indiana. He said that out of all the teams in the East, they're the ones that basically gave the Cleveland Cavaliers a big run for their money. They felt like a couple of games in that series they should have won them, but they didn't. So that's fine and dandy. So he put the whole, where you're going after that to bed or to rest for now. Then, like today, Paul George comes out and says 2018-2019 season, he's not coming back to the franchise. He's going to opt out, become a free agent, and preferably go to Los Angeles. So all that goodwill that you put out before a couple days ago, I'm staying in Indiana, 2017-2018 season. It kind of put all the people pushing the panic button on Indiana, put that to bed for a little bit. Now he comes out with this statement, and it just catches me off guard. It's just like, why would you make the statement you did prior and then bring this one out? So I don't know if it's necessarily him that said it. Sometimes, like the sources said he said or she said, whatever. I don't know if it's coming from the organization, but the way that it's coming out, it was like very poorly done. Like he should have never did that. Like, he should have just stuck with his first statement, and then when the summer of 2018 came about, he could have said, I'm opting out and I'm not coming back. This way you avoid playing in hell or purgatory, one or the other, because it's gonna be hell for the fans and hell for you, and it's gonna be like purgatory because every day you're gonna get questions from fans like, are you gonna stay? Are you 100% sure that you're leaving after this season? So he put himself in the catch-22 there. Like, put himself in a bind that he could get himself out of by either getting Indiana out to like a high seed in the playoffs and actually doing something in the playoffs this year, or just simply just getting ridiculed because fans, now that they know he's not staying, he's not truly committed like he said he was a few days ago, they're going to be booing him. They're going to let him hear it. Indiana also has a big quandary on their hand because they have to either let Paul George walk at the end of 2017-2018 season, they have to let him walk with nothing in return, or they have to trade him and hope another team will be willing to take on his contract for 1 year because, according to Paul George, he wants to go play in LA. So, this hurts not only Paul George, but it hurts the Pacers organization because they have to figure out what to do with him in the meantime. So, I hope this didn't come out of his lips. Like, I hope they didn't tell the organization this. Maybe somebody's just making up a rumor, or maybe this is a potential that he's not coming back. But this hurts both sides because now you can't come in there with a negotiating tactic that's gonna help or work. Like, Indiana knows where they stand, and Paul George knows where he stands, and now the Lakers have an upper hand on, the whole Paul George situation because Indiana could have said, well, we'll trade you to the Lakers right now. But now the Lakers know that, okay, Paul George wants to come to us, so we're not going to give up any young prospects. We're just going to wait out this season, and then we'll get Paul George. So, Paul George really put the Indiana organization in the bind. I don't know if he's paying them back for, maybe they didn't bring in enough help that he wanted. Maybe they didn't do a few things that he wanted them to do, and now he's just paying them back. But this also hurts him because not only has to deal with the fans in Indiana, he has to deal with the whole year of playing where it's just like, why are you here? Like, we know you're leaving. You're not really committed to us like you said you were. You're going back on your word. And here's the weird thing. When they asked him about that LeBron situation in Cleveland a few days ago, he said he doesn't really even talk to LeBron like that. Well, now this situation where you say you're committed and then you're like, okay, after the season, I'm not coming back. It's like, how can we trust your word? Like, maybe you are really still talking to LeBron. So he kind of hurting his credibility there. Only thing I could say is I do give him credit on this. A lot of guys will not be upfront with you. They'll say, well, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. at least in this case, he's telling people, I'm not coming back. After this season, I'm not coming back. So that's at least both organizations know where they stand. It's just not a good negotiating tactic, and it doesn't give the teams wiggle room to make other teams sweat. Like, like if the Pacers, if this didn't come out about Paul George saying that he's not coming back and he's not opting out, he's not going to become a free agent in 2018 season or whatever. If they just could have held on till about February of next year, they could have traded Paul George for like a Kevin Love, maybe a Tristan Thompson in a combo deal, or get J.R. Smith and Kevin Love for Paul George. They could have made that happen. And then Cleveland wouldn't even know what's going on. Like, they wouldn't know, like, okay, Paul George is really not going to stay with us. He wants to go to L.A. So that would have been perfect. But now Indiana has no recourse. They can't do anything in this case. Their hands are tied. I mean, if you try to move him for 1 year, who's going to give you a solid piece for him? And you're stuck because if he walks after this season and you don't get a piece for him, it's like you're back to the drawing board. Your franchise is back to the Stone Age. Larry Bird left. Monte Ellis is facing a 5-game suspension. They fired Frank Vogel. Me, in my opinion, wrongfully so. I don't think Frank Vogel was doing a bad job. I just feel like some of those guys weren't responding. And then now you're going to lose Paul George. That's like the straw that's going to break the camel's back. And your team is just going to go back to the Stone Age. They're going to be a lottery team. So I don't know where they can take it from there. Paul George really doesn't leave the Indiana Pacers much choice but to trade him. So they have to trade him. And maybe that's all part of Paul George and LeBron's plan. Maybe he says this so they can bust a move, do a quick trade, and then he gets to be where he wanted to be all along, which is Cleveland. Because honestly, you can't trust his word, because 2 days ago he told you he was committed. Now he's telling you he's going to opt out. Like, which one is it? I understand it's 2 different seasons, but why would you say one thing, just not leave it at that? So that's kind of crazy, but let me know what you think about it. Do you think that Paul George really does want to go to LA, or is this all a ploy to get to Cleveland? This is Vlad from Hoops Junction with Hoops Meets Hoopla. Peace.